I basically just work all the time, which is probably a terrible answer, but any social media manager knows that like social kind of just doesn't sleep.
Welcome to Confessions of a Social Media Manager with me, Erin from Agorapulse. Today I have with me Ashley Wheeler. Ashley is the Assistant Director of Social Media for the Harvard Business School. Now, there is a podcast out there called Who Weekly, and they have this binary system in which they define celebrities, who's and thems. A who is like, you hear their name and you're like, who the hell is that? Someone like BB Rexa. No one's going to know who that is. I know, but that's a reflection on me. But a them is like Meryl Streep. You hear their name and you know exactly what they're about. The Harvard Business School is very much a them. It's considered one of the most top graduate business schools in the world. It's educated secretaries of state, CEOs of the world's top companies like Vodafone, Ford and Sotheby's, and also maybe educated Tyra Banks. But the internet may dispute that. I'm not entirely sure if they did, but I'm sure Ashley can confirm this for us later. Ashley's career in social has firmly been within the education sector. And you could say she was almost destined to work in education. Both her mother and her grandmother were teachers. While they tried to dissuade her from working as a teacher herself, she knew she wanted to end up working in a school somehow. Like many currently working in social media, she started out in marketing as the marketing communications manager for the Cardigan School, a boys' boarding and day school in New Hampshire. She then moved on to the Harvard Business School, starting out as a digital marketing specialist, dealing with everything from organising video shoots to generating social media content. Then, as of November 2020, she became their Assistant Director of Social Media. When asked to describe her social media career so far, she said unexpected, challenging and educational. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for joining us. I mean, I really want to know about the education sector. This is one of the things I want to have for this interview. And then your name popped up and I was like, of all the people to tell me about the education sector and social media, this is the woman to do it. So could you tell me about exactly what you do in your role as Assistant Director of Social Media at the Harvard Business School?
Sure. So Harvard Business School does a ton of research. And so a big part of my job is to kind of tell a couple different stories, which I think social media is very much about storytelling, something I'm passionate about, something that I enjoy doing. And so telling stories of faculty research, telling stories of students on campus and their journey to the MBA program, their journey through the MBA program, highlighting faculty, staff, and kind of like all the things that go on campus is kind of the bulk overview of sort of what I do in my job, and thinking about who we share it with, when we share it, the format we share it in, and kind of juggling all those balls, which is super fun.
That sounds very much like a social media manager's role, but your role, it sounds a bit different. Why the Assistant Director of Social Media in the Harvard Business School? How does that work?
I report to the Director of Communications, who reports to our CMO, and then underneath me I have a social media coordinator. So I do manage a team of one, two counting myself. And so I kind of deal less now with the scheduling of content. I still create content because we're a small team, but less with content creation and more thinking strategically, thinking long-term, creating campaigns, that kind of stuff. So I'm less boots on the ground, more kind of like managing the process at this point.
Now, it's fair to say you've been around the block. So if someone had asked you now today about starting a career in social media, what would be the first piece of advice you would give them?
Oh gosh. I think just to consider why you're doing it. I think a lot of people, not to quote The Bachelor, but get into it for the wrong reasons, thinking that it's super kind of cushy and that it's very glamorous and it's super cool. And sometimes it is all those things, but you have to really be passionate about content creation, telling stories, and kind of being willing to do kind of the grunt work to get it done. It's not always glamorous. Sometimes it is glamorous. Sometimes you are holding the door for Tyra Banks or meeting DJ Khaled or doing something really fun. But your day-to-day, most of the time is not that. And so just to consider why you're doing it and if it's something that you're passionate about. Like I started because I was really passionate about storytelling. I right out of college worked as a newspaper reporter. I enjoyed taking photos, and so this social media kind of just melded all the things that I really enjoyed together and seemed like a really good fit for the things that I liked to do and the things I thought I was good at. So that would be kind of my advice.
I think other people have mentioned this to me as well, that go into it liking social media already. Don't, if you are anti-social media, you will not be able to force yourself to like it if there is an inherent dislike there, or you can't naturally get on board with it, or it doesn't come naturally to you. So yeah, I definitely agree. Like, want to do it in the first place, and then the harder bits when they do come are just that bit more manageable. What is a typical day like for you working at the Harvard Business School?
So it totally varies. There's so much going on all the time, which is one of the reasons I love it, because you never know what your day is going to look like. It is a lot of meetings, will say usually, but it's a good balance of meetings and kind of getting to go to events and cover things, whether it's visiting the classroom, like if we have a new case protagonist, sometimes we'll be allowed in the classroom to do live social for it. Whether it's going to professors' offices, we do this little thing called office hours where we source questions from our Instagram audience. And so we'll go to professors' offices and kind of ask them questions, to going to speaking events, to book talks, to kind of anything in between. You never know what a day is going to look like. If it's a slow day, maybe we'll walk around campus and take some pictures. And then it's just kind of thinking strategically about what's coming up. We're always thinking a month or two ahead. So we've already started kind of thinking about the end of the year, which is crazy. But yeah, every day is different, which is one of the things I really like and value about working in social.
Obviously, doing this for like a university, you as a communications like team, which is what you basically are, is that you're at a sort of the nexus of all these different departments. And I've done social media for a university before, so I get not quite as amazing as yours, but I do understand that you must really try hard to get buy-in from different places that aren't naturally attuned to the needs of social media. Professors, for example, like I remember that, like, sometimes they're a bit like, either a bit like, can you just not put this on social, just put it on there, or trying to convince them that it's worth it to promote their program is a lot. How have you developed the skills to get people to buy in to what you're doing for the university?
I think we're lucky in that we have so many faculty. We have, I think, close to 300 at this point. So we do have, yeah. So we have a good pool to kind of choose from. And so we don't have to like peer pressure anyone into participating or not, because we always have an abundance of content. Usually we have kind of like a core group of faculty that are really into social and really kind of get it. They're usually the younger faculty or faculty that are kind of working on their tenure and need to promote their research. Those are kind of the faculty that are more willing to kind of like work and collaborate with us. Older faculty usually aren't even on social, or don't kind of participate in it, or have somebody else that kind of like externally manages it for them. And a lot of faculty's willingness to work on social comes from kind of centers around their research cycle. So if they have a new book coming out, if they have new research, they're more willing to kind of like participate in kind of interesting, fun social things. And it's always good when it's kind of stuff that we can show examples of. I think faculty are often scared to do new things. We have a couple faculty members. Sadal Neely is one of my personal favorites. She's always willing to try. She just came out with a really good new book too. So she's always willing to try kind of like fun new things that other faculty may not be super willing to try. And so that's always really fun to get to experiment. So we don't peer pressure them, but we just kind of, we'll show them examples and be like, hey, if you want to, like, here's some examples of things that we do for faculty. So we've been trying, and I think we've been getting more buy-in as social media has gotten bigger and as people kind of see the value in promoting things on Twitter, for example, or Instagram.
Peer pressure is a good way to describe it, because that peer pressure is what I had to do a lot to get people on board. So you've got a huge network at your disposal. So you first came in as a digital marketing specialist. When you first came in, were those structures in place to get these people on board? Like, or did you find, because you've been there for a while now, did you find that you really had to put the steps into place to like have the monthly meetings with the faculty, get those people involved, or was it more fully formed? Because obviously, you started at a time where social media was very, very different, and now it's evolved into completely something else. So like, what kind of structures did you have to put in place to get an easy flow of content coming in?
So this is going to make me sound so old, but when I started, we had just started Twitter. I started our Instagram account. Like that's how long I've been there. Like so old. I know. So we had none of those structures kind of in place. And I'd say we do have structures in place. It's very loose kind of still currently. Faculty reach out to us on like an individual basis. We kind of don't go chasing them down unless we really want to create something with them. Um, and it's still kind of an ongoing process um, to put these structures in place. We do social media training with faculty if they want it. So we kind of do that, which is fun to talk through it. But yeah, I'd say it's very much still a work in progress. It's very fluid. It's very flexible. We kind of meet the faculty where they're at, which is a unique challenge.
It's interesting you say you give social media training to these people. Do you find that like your role is very much, you are the resident social media expert, and then how do you keep up with that? So I mean, obviously, you're part of it. Maybe I think a two-man team, so you've got a coordinator with you. How are you keeping up with the latest stuff to obviously keep stuff going? You're on the strategizing end of things now. How do you keep that up?
I basically just work all the time, which is probably a terrible answer, but any social media manager knows that like social kind of just doesn't sleep. I get a lot of alerts. I am subscribed to a lot of kind of like tech newsletters. I am part of a bunch of Facebook groups. Higher Ed Social on Facebook is one of my favorites. I just kind of like research. I mean, things are always changing, so just being on top of knowing like the dimensions of pictures or what size banner you need or how hashtags are being used, things like that. I always try to like kind of stay up to date on because we just need to know them. And then the person that works with me also does a really great job of kind of keeping on top of that. So between the two of us, we do an okay job. I wouldn't say we do a fabulous job because things are always changing. So a lot of Googling and figuring things out on the fly, but we make it work.
I would say, I mean, I looked at your feeds, like fabulous, that you can say you're doing a fabulous job. It's working. Um, it's interesting because like I know what you picked up on is that what's unique to the higher education scene is that you do have these a lot of active groups for different aspects of higher education. So I know that here in the UK there are groups for higher education comms and things like that, and they do share a lot of ideas. Um, is that something like with your networks? Have you found that you can get a lot of information from, people who work with, your competitors and things like that? Is that something that you rely on a lot to like have that network of, social media managers out there to talk to and exchange ideas about the sector?
Yes, I love hearing what, especially particularly business schools, because business schools are kind of a little different than other like undergraduate institutions.
Why is that? Why are they different?
So everyone is slightly older. When you go to just undergrad, you're 18 to like around 23. And so our students, the average age is around 27. So they're kind of like fully formed. Like we don't like sometimes I'll be like, oh, the kids. I'll be like, oh no, I mean adults, because they're like fully formed like adults. They've worked for several years in various industries. So they're kind of like a different breed. Like you're not necessarily meeting them like on TikTok right now because they're older. They didn't kind of like they're not part of the TikTok world. We're meeting them on Instagram or we're meeting them on like things that are like several kind of years behind just because of the age of the people that are kind of interested in HBS or coming to HBS. They're slightly older. So it's interesting to think about like how to market to them and where to kind of like meet them and see them.
Obviously, you've got like that core social media team. So I'm assuming you have a marketing team, an alumni team. How closely are you working with those teams that are kind of centered on the same goal, apart from like the faculty and like the program people who are running the programs and stuff like that kind of core sort of extended comms teams? What is it like working with them?
So we have, I want to say, over 30 social media managers across HBS. I run kind of like our flagship and I'm kind of like the main point person, but we have around 30 people kind of working in various departments, our initiatives, executive education, HBS Online. So we do have a lot of people working in social, which is great. We do a monthly social media managers meeting just to catch up and talk. We have an email group. Harvard University, the whole university has a social media manager Slack channel that we all kind of like share and exchange ideas and content, which is cool. And then I am part of the business school social media managers group. We kind of meet also monthly, exchange ideas. So that's fun because you get to see like the faces and the names behind your competitors, if you will, kind of exchange ideas just like on the business school front. So it's exciting, it's interesting. A lot of meetings come out of it, a lot of brainstorming.
I'm kind of like nerding out at the prospect of like 30 social media managers working for the same place, being in the same room. Like, oh my God, like what a utopia for me. Like we would all understand each other's unique pain. And that's so interesting because like, that each department, obviously, because it's who you are, that you do need dedicated people and you do. It's good to hear that you do have the dedicated resources in the department, so you yourself aren't scrambling. So I understand now how much more smoother your process is because you've got your people in those places kind of putting the things together.
So I kind of work so I manage and kind of like work on like our flagship accounts like at Harvard HBS. But then all those social media managers kind of manage, it might be just like a part-time part of their job or like rolled into kind of like other job descriptions or whatever. But I work as a kind of like advisor to kind of the other social media managers on campus. So it's really fun to see like what projects they're working on, to answer questions, to help source photos, to work on creative if there's a project going on. And it kind of like keeps me like boots on the ground, like an ear to the floor, I guess, just to know what everyone's doing and be able to kind of like weasel my way into knowing everything that's going on campus.
And you mentioned projects, so you get to know what projects everyone's sort of working on and that keeps you excited. What is there anything exciting that you're working on at the moment that you can tell us about?
So there are two that I always will get excited about. Well, maybe three. So one is unique to this year. It is the 100-year anniversary of the HBS case method. So we do case method learning. Faculty do research. They write a case, and that's what they teach in the classroom. So the classrooms are more dynamic, more of a discussion, less of a lecture. So faculty don't end up doing like a ton of talking during class, which is really cool. If you ever get a chance to like see it and happening in real life, it's very cool. It's stressful, but it's awesome. So we're celebrating 100 years of faculty writing cases. So that's going to be a year-long kind of project, which is fun. So we're working on, we have a podcast called Cold Call that we've been doing for, I want to say 5 or 6 years, maybe longer, which distills the case method. We talk to faculty members. Our CMO, Brian, is the host. He's awesome. And we are thinking about doing some live events, like live recordings of Cold Call. We have lamppost banners around campus kind of celebrating it. We're sharing hopefully sharing some curated like collections of cases. So very excited about that, figuring out ways to make cases kind of more accessible to the general public because they are usually for sale. They're not usually like free things. So just figuring out ways to kind of like share the cases method and cases with the general public, which is very exciting. Another thing that I really love working on every year and that we're kind of brainstorming, I think it's the 25th anniversary of, is our new venture competition. I don't know. It's basically Shark Tank, the TV show, for entrepreneurs at HBS, which is really fun. It's a venture pitch competition. They have winners like Rent the Runway was a winner one year, Swell Bottles, Blue Land, I think, like the cleaning products. So there have been some big names that come out of it. It's always super exciting to see them kind of like start a company, pitch it, really work on their like idea and like finalize it, and then see them kind of like after HBS launch off into like some really cool, awesome project. Has been really great. Love Pop Cards was one of them. So it's really fun to see something start and then like, I don't know, see their like advertisements on the subway or see like a commercial for them on TV and be like, oh my gosh, I remember when. I always really look forward to that. It's super cool to see kind of behind the scenes of how all that works. And then I always look forward to commencement. I think it's just like the best time of year. It's just such a big celebration. It's so fun. And so we always try to make every year really special. Last year was obviously a challenge because it was all virtual, which I've never had to do. We've never had to do before. And so now we're kind of rethinking this year. We obviously don't know what it's going to look like, but last year was really fun being able to kind of bring the whole week live to everybody around the world that wanted to kind of witness it and be a part of it, which we've never kind of been able to do before. So that's been really fun too. And hopefully we'll be able to continue with that this year.
There's a lot of stuff to be excited about. I can see why you're excited about it. I think one of the things about the Harvard Business School is that, you guys are a part of history. So it's like seeing those things come up and like to fruition, you're just like see an advert for it, you're like, oh damn, yeah, no, like we kind of made that happen. So that must be like absolutely just exciting for you, and like your content brain must be going like, oh my god, I could say this about it. Can I ask, because you mentioned this very briefly, you obviously been having to do more virtual stuff because of the pandemic. What was that shift like for you? Because obviously, universities and schools, they got disrupted, completely disrupted. What was that like? How did you have to kind of shift all of your content and the kind of crisis communications? Was that a factor in a lot of your work in the past year?
Yeah, it was very crazy. I'd be lying if we said we had like a complete plan in place when it happened. We just kind of worked through it on the fly. A lot of really cool things kind of, for at least for us, came out of it. The hybrid classroom is really cool. So we got to, a lot of staff and faculty. Part of the fun thing about working at HBS is like it is a big experiment, and a lot of the times faculty or staff are kind of like the ones who get to help with the experiments. And so it was fun getting to sit in on the process of like how hybrid classrooms are going to work and kind of get to test out how the case method works when some people are virtual, some people are in person. I thought that was really fun to be able to kind of see that, thinking through like events and how we share events and where we host them. Do we live stream them? Do we do Zoom? Do we use YouTube? Do we use Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it LinkedIn? Thinking through that. What else is really cool? We came up with a series on YouTube with our CMO, Brian Kenny. He's like all-star host. He'll host anything, literally. Which is great, called Managing Through Crisis, where we talked through various parts of the pandemic with faculty members on YouTube, which was fun. It gave us a lot of time to kind of experiment and think. I've never had to pause social media more in my life. There were a lot of times where it was like, okay, we're shutting it all down for a day, or for 24 hours, we're not saying anything, we're not posting anything. Thinking through, is the president of Harvard College or Harvard University going to say something? Is the dean going to put out a statement? Like, who's doing what? Thinking through like the coordination of that through all the processes and approvals, shifting our content completely to kind of the business of the pandemic. A lot of talk about small businesses, and the stimulus checks and all kind of like crazy stuff happening in America aside from the pandemic. So it was a really crazy year. But it was good to know that we are flexible, we can pivot, and that like our audience was pretty forgiving when things like didn't necessarily go according to plan, or if we had to pause, or if we weren't putting out as much content as we usually would be. It was good to see people kind of like stick with us and weather the storm together.
Yeah, that flexibility, like you're on the forefront of that really, as working in social. Like you're the one synthesizing everything from that's going on in the university and putting it out to the public. So I think more than anybody, is like you have to be the one flexible to understand, okay, well, this will work, this will work, this won't work, and getting that out there for them. So I can imagine, but it's really good to hear that, despite all the disruption that went on, you didn't cower away from it. You really pushed forward and like, okay, so what can we do next? What can we do next? And having that sort of that dynamic way of thinking is hard in a crisis, but I'm sure HBS like had an asset in you to make that happen. So if I was going to have a crisis on my team, I would want you there.
HBS is like a really great place because they're always, whether it's students or faculty or staff, they're always kind of encouraging innovation. So like they're really more than happy. Even before the pandemic, I think a big part of why I enjoy working there is just because they encourage you to take chances, take risks, try something new. If it doesn't work, that's fine, but they are always looking to innovate and be creative. And it was great to be in an environment where I felt comfortable enough to be able to just be like, hey, let's try this, and be like, I'm not going to get fired. I'm not going to lose my job. I'm not going to get in trouble. And I think that's really key to being able to like do a great job at your job, is to not be scared to make mistakes or get fired or whatever. So that was super helpful too.
Yeah, no, that definitely helps when you're working in social, because you have to like continuously move with trends to keep relevant. You're battling algorithms, you're doing all these things, and new features come up, and you've got to do something for that. It's good to know that you're in the environment that is receptive to that, because some social media managers aren't. Like they are quite rigid in what they can do and can't do, and really have to put their case forward, especially when they're more there's more accountability, like there sometimes is in the education sector. There's sort of not extremes, I would say, but there is a scale of like the places that are happy to get on with everything, but the people who've got shoestring budgets and they're like, okay, I don't think we're going to be able to put like a bunch of money behind reels, okay, so maybe park that. Obviously, you got so many, you have the abundance of like HBS, that you're so agile, so you have so many projects on the go. How do you measure success on social media with so many things going on and so much content at your disposal?
So success is a weird thing, I think, in higher ed, especially at HBS, because we're not necessarily selling something. So it can't be like how many conversions, like click conversions do you have to buy this product, or like, because the product is really just like education, knowledge. Um, so for me, success is people follow us and get the best possible sense of what HBS does. So for me, that's sharing diverse and interesting and unique stories. That's giving people faculty research. That's sharing photos from campus. That's if I paint a full picture of what's going on at HBS, that's success for me. Not focusing too hard on certain areas, I think. And really, a good chunk of my job and how I sort of measure success too is myth busting. People have a preconceived notion of Harvard, what it is, um, that you can't go walk around on campus, that everyone's rich and snobby, and like there's just these preconceived notions that just aren't necessarily true. And so for me, if I can change some people's minds and make them feel like Harvard would welcome them with open arms, like that's a big piece of success for me too, because um, everyone's kind of invited to walk around, be part of it as much as they possibly can. And yeah, I think that's more how I measure success, rather than kind of the analytics of it. Obviously, thinking about engagement's important. Like a successful post would have, 3,000 likes or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, it's painting a really good picture of what it's actually like to be at Harvard Business School.
How do you go about managing a brand with such a legacy behind it? So there must be a lot of like pressure. Obviously, you mentioned that, you were there from the very beginning. You're the one who started the Twitter and the Instagram. However, you would have had a communications team since time began. How do you, where do you feel that there are confines to what you can say because you are such a big brand within your sector? Like, has there any been times you have to rub against that?
I think sometimes, yeah, there are times that I want to be a little more fun, and it's like, oh, fun's not really the HBS brand necessarily. But there are also times where you kind of have to look and be like, you know what, maybe the brand wasn't fun, but like moving forward, like it's 2021, like things are changing, times are changing, like maybe we should be a little more fun. And so I think finding a good balance is interesting. A good example would be our student newspaper kind of has like a satirical business school shoot off Instagram account called Dear Harvey. They poke fun at the dean, they poke fun at the silly things that happen at HBS, whether it's in the classroom or an email communication or a phrase somebody says often. Really specific to HBS, so most people probably wouldn't find it that funny. But that's something that's very off brand for us. We don't manage it, but even just allowing it to be part of the online presence of Harvard Business School is terrifying, but it also kind of helps show what students are thinking about, what bothers students, like things like that. And so being able to kind of like let go of the brand a little bit has been a challenge, but it's really fun to kind of think through like Harvard Business School in the modern day. But we also obviously try to honor kind of the legacy and history. And it's been really interesting this past year, kind of with all the diversity and inclusion efforts we've been going through. Obviously, Harvard has had not the best past with diversity. And so, kind of acknowledging that and looking forward and trying to do better in the future is kind of one of our bigger hopes for this year, next year, years to come. Highlighting more diverse, unique stories, accepting more diverse and unique candidates. It's just like an effort across the school. So we definitely don't hide from our past, but we definitely want to make our future better, more diverse, more unique, and make Harvard something that's great for everyone for years and years to come.
Ashley, you have such a healthy attitude to that meme account because I remember I had a meme account that was just really really just doing my head in because they were really trying to test me every day on that meme account. So it's good to know that, you sort of they sound more respectful than the one that I had to battle with. But that's definitely a thing of university culture and higher education is that like be prepared for the meme accounts to try and ruin your day any which way they can.
Any way they can.
And who's running it? You can never find out who it is. So you're just like, for God's sake.
We're super lucky in that we're not allowed to say, but students will let us know who they are. Like I have a meeting with them next week, which is very lucky because most people wouldn't. But there are a lot of other business school accounts where people won't give up their identity, like Crazy Management Consultant or MBA Mikey, or there are a bunch of them, but they always poke fun at HBS. And so, but I appreciate the poking fun. It gives me a good point of how people perceive HBS, and it kind of allows you to counter those perceptions. So it is useful, even though sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, why are they making fun of me so hard?
Yeah, I know. I'm like, please, like, of all days, I need you to do that kind of meme. And today is not the day.
Is it ever the day?
So you've touched on this before, like you mentioned before that you were like, oh, to keep on top of everything in social, I'm online all the time. How do you manage, if you can, a work-life balance in social media?
I mean, I just sound like the biggest HBS fangirl, but like my bosses are great about like the weekends are for you, like log off, like I mean, there are situations like there's a rally planned this weekend with kind of like the crazy like pro-Trumpers. So like we're shutting down social media tomorrow. And so that's kind of one of the things where I will have to work on the weekend, but most weekends are pretty free for me, which is so nice. And they kind of respect and understand weekends. Also, just like planning ahead, like having content just scheduled out makes it so I don't always have to be working, which is also nice. But I mean, if I'm sitting on the couch and watching like Real Housewives or something of the sort, like I will be scrolling through and like engaging and answering DMs and finding retweets and kind of doing stuff that is just sort of a little more on the mindless side. But I try really hard to make sure I log off at some points. Like vacations, I make sure I log off. Like it's really important to definitely like sign out, log off, don't participate, and then you can come back and feel really fresh and good and re-energized to keep going. Easier said than done, but I really try to do that.
I know what you mean about when you're like sort of on the sofa and you're like watching something and you just sort of like in the corner of your eye, you're just sort of scrolling on your company feed, like, let me just check, let me just.
Especially if like I've already been cruised through everything on my own personal accounts, it's like, all right, I guess I'll go over to HBS and see what the trolls are saying.
Do you have like a separate work phone, or is it just you have your own personal phone and you've got the channel on there?
No, it's my own personal phone. At first, that was so terrifying to me because everything's kind of like interconnected. But luckily, there haven't been any mishaps. There have been like kind of funny reverse mishaps where I've accidentally posted like an HBS story to my own personal account, but never the other way. Knock on wood, that continues. But things like that. But yeah, it's all interconnected. It's all on one phone, so it's very scary.
So that leads brilliantly onto the next thing I was going to ask you. So, what is the biggest mistake you've made as a social media manager, and how have you fixed it? You can be as honest as you want. It's a safe space.
Luckily, I haven't really made too big of a mistake, which is great. I think sort of around like Title IX stuff, like sometimes we'll get like kind of DMs around like the student was like drinking and hit me on the weekend or something, like at a bar or something, and like they'll come to us, but we like initially when we get those responses, like I wouldn't know how to like handle it because it's not part of the MBA experience. Like how do we investigate that? Like how involved does HBS get? So I would just kind of not respond. And like it turns out not responding is not a good solution to the problem either. So we have like a coordinator who kind of deals with like on the MBA side of things, like students who misbehave or students who, I don't know, like steal money or whatever the issue may be. And so knowing that like we just direct people to that rather than trying to like solve the problem ourselves or just ignore the problem, like to be more of like a problem solver, I'd say that's where I think starting out I messed up the most. Obviously typos, like really bad typos. There have been a couple that's like, oh, that have been really bad. But other than that, luckily I haven't had any big like mess ups, mishaps, PR nightmares. So
could you explain Title IX, what Title IX is for audience members who don't know some of the university lingo?
Yeah, so Title IX is just kind of like the fair treatment of men and women. So like if someone comes to you, luckily it doesn't happen really ever at HBS, but if I don't know, if you were to get drugged at a party or something were to happen, you'd go to the Title IX coordinator and they'd work through like the investigation, figuring out kind of what happened, seeing who the guilty parties were. It just kind of like helps.
So it's like student welfare, like the kind of provisions in place for that. And then, you know, obviously, invariably, you get on the social media end of it, you are involved with it. So I imagine that, you sound like on that process, perhaps wasn't quite clear when you started out that this is what your role is in that. And then getting the things in place to make sure, okay, you do have a dedicated coordinator to access social media to do that. It's interesting, like I mean, I totally understand how that ends up happening because often the social media manager is just expected to sort of is obviously slash a community manager, so you end up dealing with absolutely everything, and more often than not, sometimes you come into a place and like no one realizes if they're not getting an email or a phone call, it's going to go to social media. So what is the plan going to be? So I imagine you had to put like your own sort of crisis comms plan in place for something that is like Title IX and have how we have to deal with that.
And we're lucky that it doesn't happen often, but when it does, you want to take it seriously. You want to make sure that you're handling it with dignity and respect, and um, like honoring what people are saying, and like that people can come to you or feel comfortable enough coming to you with like a problem, a situation that happened, and so you want to make it better. But there are processes in place and things that we kind of need to do, and just knowing that like I'm not the one that's going to solve it. like like I can't fix it, I can't investigate it, but I can pass it along and like share the message. So
You need a great deal of empathy to deal with those more sticky situations. So I suppose that is an essential skill of a social media manager. What do you think other essential skills are needed to be a good social media manager, as well as, the empathy to deal with the sticky situations?
I think a lot of being a social media manager is time management, being organized, being able to kind of like balance multiple things, being able to prioritize what goes out when, and your to-do list is never ending. So just kind of knowing what to do, what to prioritize, what needs to go out now, what can wait till later. Interpersonal skills, being able to talk to people, kind of I think being outgoing is really helpful. Um, just being able to talk to random students on campus, or being able to like reach out to people and not feel social anxiety around being like, oh gosh, I hope this professor will like answer their phone, or like, oh thank God they didn't, or just being a little outgoing, which is something that I generally am not. So it definitely like kind of pushes me to be like, I guess, friendlier, a little more outgoing. I think those are kind of like really important skills. Of course, like being a good writer, being a good photographer, those are kind of like more what skills you can learn. I guess they're all skills you can learn, but they're more like tangible skills, I suppose. Um, Proofreading is really important. I've come to learn through many mistakes. Um, and being able to ask for help, honestly, just being able to, when you can't do something, when you don't know how to do something, just being honest and being like, I can't do it, I don't know how. I can try and figure it out, but like just being transparent and being honest, I think, and being able to ask for help is a big, very humbling thing, but I think it's really important to be able to do.
That transparency, that word is getting brought up again and again. I'm talking to people that, because of the unique nature of being of our role, is that we don't want to be posting anything that is wrong or dishonest on social, because it affects so much more than us, and our brand, and then our relationship with our customers or our audience. That transparency is so important. I imagine at HBS, you want utter transparency between the departments that you're dealing with and the things that they want to get out, and they want that from you as well, to know that the work that they're giving you to promote is getting promoted in the best way possible. And then within your teams, like you mentioned with Title IX, like transparency is needed there when you're working on the more high pressure things, the more sort of low pressure things. So has there any been, I'm just interested really, like times where the transparency within your teams hasn't quite worked out, and how have you dealt with that? Because I know that some people listening to this will be going into places where they enter teams where transparency might not be the top list or sort of the top value of that team, but they need it there. What would you say to people to keep, like, have that value there in place?
I mean, I've always been of the mindset of just practice what you preach, or like lead by example. And so I always just try to be really transparent. And I think that kind of, if you're transparent, others will be kind of transparent with you usually. So you don't usually have to like force people into it. Sometimes you do, but I tend to kind of be transparent in oversharing. Like I will share everything. Like I'll share social plans, I'll share pictures, I'll be like, here's all the things I'm working on, here's all the stuff. Like feel free to ask questions. I try to be a good resource. And then people over time, once you kind of like establish a relationship, will kind of be more transparent with you. I try to be really transparent about my personal life with people. I want people to feel like I'm an open book. They can come to me, they can talk to me, they can confide in me. And that I'm not going to like make them feel weird or bad if they have new ideas or if they mess up or kind of anything like that. And I think that just by being that and being what I would hope others would be to me, I think a lot of people reciprocate, not everyone. And that makes for kind of a difficult relationship if others won't. But for the most part, I think people will reciprocate if you're kind of like living authentically and transparently. People can tell.
Ashley, you're so wise.
I don't know about that.
I feel like if you weren't a social media manager, you would be a very good agony aunt because you got that vibe. You've got that vibe. How would you summarize? No, it's all right. How would you summarize your social media journey from where you started, as you know, basically as at the Cardigan School to where you are today?
How would I summarize? I mean, I'd say it's been just like a fun learning experience. Again, when I went to college, because I'm like basically, I think a dinosaur as far as social media managers are concerned. I There was no social media, like we weren't talking about and learning about in school, like Facebook or how to publish a blog post on LinkedIn or what blogs even kind of like were. I was learning like how do you write a news article for the paper and like how do you take pictures on film, like crazy old school things. And so it's just been really fun to be kind of part of the actual journey of like watching social grow, watching it become a marketing channel, and evolve and take off, and kind of being able to, I've been lucky to be able to like grow and adapt like through that. It's been really fun. It's been a great learning experience. I love learning. I love kind of like obviously the education field. So the more I can learn, the better. And it's just been a great learning experience all around.
Wonderful. I'm glad it's been a positive experience for you, and that you're enjoying it and you want to stay in it. It sounds like you want to stay in it and not move on to something else. Where do you think the future of social media is for higher education? Because now, you know, hybrid learning has turned things on its head, especially here in the UK as well. There is a lot of debate at the moment about the worth of education for students if they're not going to be there in person. So, where do you think social media is going to play in that for your industry?
Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting. Again, we HBS still very firmly stands in the being in person is the most important thing. It's the best way to learn. So I think HBS will continue to be primarily in person, with hybrid kind of being an option if something goes wrong or if there are extenuating circumstances. But I think faculty, staff, students really appreciate like the on-campus networking, the on-campus learning environment. So I think that's not going to change for HBS. I think that'll change for education. I think a lot of other institutions will kind of take on the hybrid model. I don't think HBS is like as quick to do that. I'd be really surprised if they did. But yeah, I think I hope that HBS continues to share and make more of their programming more accessible, whether that's book talks or live streaming faculty lectures, or giving people better access to asking students questions. Like I really hope that that we become more of like can stay more of an open book and share more of what's going on in our community with everyone around the world, because there are some really incredible things that are going on campus.
Brilliant. Now it's time for our quick fire round. Are you ready, Ashley?
Yes.
Number 1, high school or college?
High school.
First social media site you signed up to?
MySpace.
Quickest way to bring a smile to a social media manager's face?
Tell them they're doing a good job or buy them coffee.
If you couldn't run your own brand's social media, which other brand would you want to do it for?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'd want to do it for like an actual celebrity, like Reese Witherspoon.
Which social media trend do you desperately want to end?
Just TikTok in general.
Interesting. My next question was going to be, which social media site would you end with a click of your fingers right now?
Yeah, probably TikTok.
So that's us for Confessions of a Social Media Manager with Ashley Wheeler from Harvard Business School. Ashley, where can people find you?
So you can find Harvard Business School on basically every social media channel except for TikTok. And that would be at Harvard HBS on most channels. And you can find me personally at um, __Ashley Snaps on Instagram.